During the show yesterday, our colleague Ian Rappaport kind of sort of said the deal was done, but left himself some wiggle room, understandably. With this story, you have to. And then 24 hours later, it is still not done. Tom Pelissero and Ian had fun with it yesterday on The Insiders. You know Tom, obviously, from sitting in this chair quite frequently. Tom, what were you doing with Ian with the hands? And it looked like he was making a pizza. He said, so they're here and they're there and we're not here. Like, what the heck was going on there?
I think Ian is, after doing the Insiders for a couple of years here, I think he's beginning to explore the space,
Mm-hmm.
to use a theater term. He's starting to play to this side of the room and to this side of the room. And then I don't know what was going on with this entire thing, but I immediately said on the air, we need to GIF that. And our fantastic NFL Network social media team had that GIF for me within mere minutes. In terms of the Brandon Aiyuk story, Ian's tweet yesterday was really kind of summarizing where we've been for several days here. And this goes back to last Friday when Mike Garafolo and I reported that the 49ers had re-engaged and they were trying to work out a long-term deal. They had made an increased offer. Brandon Aiyuk at that point had not yet taken it. The Steelers were continuing to wait. Aiyuk then took to the Instagram comments because where else would this go to say, hey, there's only two options, stop dropping reports and make a decision, referring to the 49ers, not to me and Mike. But that's still where we are here. I mean, it certainly sounds like the 49ers are not far away from being able to get something done with Brandon Aiyuk. Mike said on the air yesterday, all things equal, Aiyuk wants to be in San Francisco. And that makes a lot of sense. You're playing for Kyle Shanahan. You're playing with Brock Purdy. It's a place that you know. He bought, I believe, a house there last year. He's got roots there. He'd like to be a 49er. But it took months of these kind of on and off negotiations, sporadic trade talks to get us to this point. What the 49ers accomplished by reopening those trade talks a couple of weeks ago was really not just them figuring out where could they send Brandon Aiyuk, but also allowing Aiyuk to see what type of market did he have, not just in terms of the contract, but where he wanted to go. So you had New England, you had Cleveland, those teams were involved. It became clear Aiyuk would only want to go to Pittsburgh if he's not back in San Francisco. The problem with that is the Steelers are not going to give up a wide receiver as part of this deal. So that changes kind of the calculation for the 49ers. It's really hard to trade for somebody else's number one or number two wide receiver right now. And so the full focus for the 49ers, it seems here for the past several days has been try to get this thing done with Aiyuk. And much like we've been, Andrew, for a week and a half now, could it happen before the end of this interview? Sure. Could it never happen? Sure. We have to await because you've got several different parties here. And the 49ers, to a certain degree now, the ball is in their court, so to speak.
And the compensation in return, to me, obviously, is such a huge part of this because I think we all agree without Brandon Aiyuk, they're not a better team. Right, they're a better team with Brandon Aiyuk, and obviously having Amari Cooper linked in those Browns stories, that made sense because you're getting back a very good player. Granted, an older one, but a very good player. Are the Niners demanding a legit wide receiver back in return if they were to agree to some kind of deal?
Well, that's what they were looking for a couple of weeks ago. And that's part of the reason that the Steelers were essentially out as of, let's call it the start of last week. They were not going to get a deal done. But then again, Brandon Aiyuk, with the control he has, is any trade is going to have to involve a contract with the new team. So once it became apparent he was not going to sign a contract with the Patriots, not going to sign a contract with the Browns, then it became a single team that, from the 49ers perspective, had the lowest offer in terms of the trade compensation. So that's where the 49ers, I can tell you, called a lot of different teams. If you're a GM, though, for any of those other teams, and you're going, all right, it's the second week of August, I'm going to trade you my number one or number two wide receiver right now and take that guy away from my coaches for maybe a draft pick in 2025 that doesn't help me right now. It's a hard proposition. Now, obviously, that could evolve as we get into the season. Let's get a month in and kind of see what teams aren't any good, who might be available at that point. That happens every year. But in terms of getting somebody now, there's really nobody for them to go out and get. And so that's where then the 49ers recalibrated here and said, okay, Brandon Aiyuk, we've always wanted him to be back here. Let's go beyond where we were willing to go before in terms of a contract extension. Nothing's done. Again, as of this second right now, Andrew, that could happen at any time. It doesn't sound like we're far apart here, but as we know, and to paraphrase Yoda, there is no close, there is only done.
Wow. Do or do not, there is no try. Yeah.
Right. I'm using that and spinning that. See,
Yeah, I get it.
I know you like Star
I
Wars,
get it.
so I figured
Yeah.
I'd just take you on that
That
little
was excellent.
That was very good, Tom. Found someone you have.
And as Brockman knows, I haven't really watched any of the
Anything.
Star Wars
He's-
except those first
he's-
three
I mean,
movies. So
you're-
I'm
I'm
going old
shocked.
school.
It's
Yeah.
it's
This
you
is
you
70s
and
Star
you
Wars,
and Dan Hanzus. I mean, the two guys that he's angry with it though. He takes shots at people. You just throw in the occasional Star Wars reference and go, I don't get it. Anyway, that said, also Tom Pelissero with the 49ers. There's Trent Williams who's not there. There's a Christian McCaffrey hamstring issue as well. So it's not as if this is the only thing hanging over their heads. There is a little bit going on there. Meantime, there's a lot going on in Dallas as well. Obviously, they're still here in Oxnard getting ready to take the field with the Rams in about 90 minutes. Real quick, are we any closer? I know you're sick of this probably as a daily topic. CeeDee Lamb and Dak, is there anything imminent the more and more Jerry talks into an open microphone?
There's still active conversations, negotiations going on both fronts. I don't get the sense that anything is imminent on either end. There was some optimism, I think, over the weekend that maybe CeeDee Lamb potentially could get done this week. I don't know that that's going to happen. Structure has certainly been a part of the conversation. The Cowboys like to do long contract extensions, 5, 6, sometimes S. Tyron Smith, 8-year type deals here. And CeeDee Lamb's agent, Tory Dandy, prefers to do short deals. He's the king of the 3-year wide receiver contract. So at some point, that has to come into focus here. They're going to have to figure out, could a 4-year deal make sense? Would the Cowboys be willing to do that? And then in terms of the money, it's going to be how close to Justin Jefferson's $35 million a year does CeeDee Lamb get? I still believe that there's a fairly good chance that the Cowboys are going to work this thing out. They're going to get something done with CeeDee Lamb prior to the start of the season, and that he's going to be out there in week 1. If they don't, you really have to wonder. CD is already sitting out all this time. You can pay back the fines. The team can waive the fines if you get something done coming off a rookie contract here. What they can't do is give you back dollar for dollar the game checks you'd be missing if you get into September. Now, obviously, they could eventually pay him more money, and that all kind of evens out here. But that's the looming question: is what would happen if something does not get done with CD? In terms of Dak, he's got an unbelievable level of leverage going into this because they had to use that second franchise tag back because they needed to buy time to get the paperwork through when he signed his extension back in 2021. Now he's set to hit unfettered free agency, which almost never happens with a franchise quarterback not named Kirk Cousins. And so, again, the Cowboys are making some level of an effort here. They are seeing if they can get something done with Dak. But in terms of anything getting done, really soon here, getting done today, I don't foresee that.
Talking to Tom Pelissero here as we get closer and closer to the preseason. Jaden Daniels sure looks like he's going to be the guy in Washington. It sure does not look like J.J. McCarthy is going to be on the field anytime soon. We just don't know when he could possibly be back until they get in there and they look at the knee. And then there's the curious case of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Tom. I don't think that's a Steelers hoodie you're wearing, although I can't see entirely. I don't know why you would be wearing a Steelers hoodie. Look, it's not like Justin Fields, lit it up last week. Quite the opposite. But the more and more time he gets in camp, how much more likely is it that he could kind of, I don't want to say steal because he's an experienced starting quarterback, but kind of weasel his way in a good way to that job?
Well, let's see what happens with Russell Wilson over the next couple of weeks here because he popped that calf in the conditioning drill pushing a sled on the first day that the Steelers reported to Latrobe.
Can I cut you off there real quick? Like that always, sorry about it. Like the way it happened, is there frustration from his camp as to how he got injured? Because that's a new thing they were doing this year with that
Correct.
sled.
New
right?
strength coach, new drill.
Yeah.
Maybe just not the smartest idea to have your 34-year-old quarterback.
Yeah, we're on the same page.
Like I said, I don't anticipate we'll see Russ doing that drill again if he's a Steeler in 2025. But it's also, Russ is somebody who's always going to jump at any challenge. And hey, you want me to push that sled? Just tell me how far. He feels a little something. If it were up to Russ, he would have been out there the next day. He felt like he could go. But the Steelers doctors, who are traditionally conservative, have been just kind of pumping the brakes, bringing him along slowly. And that's where you've seen him integrate into things gradually over the course of time here. I know Mike Tomlin hasn't said who's going to start the second preseason game. I know this: the Steelers' organizational philosophy is giving people every opportunity and standing by your people, whether that is the Steelers extending Mike Tomlin's contract without a playoff win in the last 6 years, or it's Mike Tomlin sticking by Matt Canada for as long as he did, sticking by, certain players and coaches through the years. With Russell Wilson, when Mike Tomlin's been saying since the spring that Russ is in pole position, there's a level of respect that Mike Tomlin gives to veteran players in the locker room here, which has all made me believe that one way or another, the likely scenario here was that Russ at least gets to start the season, and Tomlin will stick with him for as long as he humanly possibly can. The X factor in this is the fact that Russ wasn't healthy coming out of the gate. Let's see what he looks like if and when he's able to get preseason game action. I'm not saying it won't happen, that Justin Fields can't overtake him. I also don't put everything that happened in that preseason opener on Justin Fields because, the poor Herbig kid at center who couldn't make an exchange to Justin Fields. It's hard to judge when that type of stuff is happening here. But for Justin Fields, everything I've heard in camp is kind of what Fields has always been, which is that the highlights are awesome. He will make some crazy plays. And there's other times you see certain things. It's like, oh, yeah, that's kind of what we saw in Chicago, where maybe the ball's not coming out quickly enough. He's not seeing it soon enough. He's extending plays where really you could play within rhythm. I think that this offense, what Arthur Smith wants to do in terms of running the football, it's the deep play action, it's the shots down the field. This plays to the strengths of both the quarterbacks that they have. But based upon Russ having that calf issue right out of the gate here, we really haven't seen it be a head-to-head style of competition. So let's see what happens over these next couple of weeks and in the preseason games.
I saw what you did there, by the way. Can I pull the curtain back? I'm going to assume something. Tell me if I'm wrong, because I do this all the time. You can't remember which Herbig it is, and so you said the Herbig kid.
Is it Nick?
Right.
I'm going to guess Nick.
Who's
I don't know. There's a Nate.
Nate's the center. Yeah, Nick's the linebacker.
See, that's why I didn't say it. And then you just called me out on it. But it's a Herbig. I know there's more than one. So I glossed over it.
I wasn't trying to make you look bad. I'm saying I see what you did
there. It's not a Steelers
there.
hoodie either, by the way.
Right. Of course it's not a Steelers hoodie. You wouldn't be wearing a Steelers hoodie. You live in Minneapolis, for Pete's sake. And you generally don't wear team gear for teams. I mean, generally, I don't care. I'm sure we all get a lot of team gear. Right, I generally would not wear team gear from
only
somewhere.
Team gear in my house belongs to either my kids or it's packed in the stuff that my parents eventually dropped off,
Really?
in those big plastic bins, with childhood jerseys. So there's probably a Dwayne Rudd jersey or something in my garage, but no, nothing recent.
See, I have so much Rams and Browns team gear from doing jobs for them, right? Or you have all this team gear. And so that I will wear. Sometimes you walk into a building and somebody says, hey, you want a shirt? I'm like, oh, sure. Then I give it to somebody a fan of the team that is a friend. I'm sorry for I had something with the Olympics last week as well. I couldn't remember. And I just said, oh, yeah, the so-and-so. Anyway.
You can just make up any name, though, in that, and no one's going to call you out on it. Just make up a name.
Yeah. Well, the Georgian wrestlers and judoka, those names from the Balkans, they just got me every single time. Real quick, Hassan Reddick, anything? I mean, that thing is just.
It's a very unique situation, and I think that it's fair to say that there were assumptions made on both sides that didn't end up being true. So the Jets, position on this has been Hassan Reddick needs to show up in order to have them look at his contract again, which is something they tried to do back before the draft, and he turned down, back before the trade, and that he turned down the offer that they were willing to make. They didn't really re-engage quickly on that. And now, here we are. He's lost $3 million or so in fines already. You get into the season, now you start losing game checks here. Whatever, set aside the idea of a long-term extension. Even if you're going to get a one-year bump, you've kind of mitigated some of that by the amount of fines you've already racked up, and you're a veteran player, so those can't be waived. There's still some questions about how the signing bonus is handled and things like that. But yeah, I mean, this is something different. I don't get the sense that this is a distraction in the most common sense of the word for the Jets, just because most of the guys on the team have never met Hassan Reddick. You heard Aaron Rodgers saying about it yesterday, yeah, I think I played against him, but I really don't know him. Nobody does. He's never gone through a walkthrough with the team. So, to the extent that when it's a guy that everybody knows and a locker room leader, you feel that absence, these guys don't know Hassan Reddick. One way or another, I anticipate that they're going to figure something out, but it's a matter of, is he really going to play this out into the season? He's already giving up a lot of money, and he'd be, potentially throwing good money after bad. But it's right now just a bad situation for everybody involved. And, until he comes in, I don't know how much progress is going to be made to get on the same page.
He showed up and did the physical and did a presser, and that was it, and said, hey, everything's going to work out. And then it hasn't. So, yeah. Tom Pelissero, we thank you kindly, sir. Safe travels, and good luck with all those flights. We've all been there. And, I'm sorry for accusing you of wearing a Steelers hoodie. I knew it wasn't.
I'll take your nap on the floor of the San Francisco airport and raise you a nap in the lobby of the Salt Lake City airport, Andrew. We all had problems. We all had problems.
The Salt Lake City airport is lovely. And, I mean, it
is actually very nice.
Yeah, they've redone that other terminal. Yeah, it's great.
There's nowhere you want to have a 14-hour delay before the flight is canceled. But if you're going to Salt Lake, not bad.
Oh, my Lord. Yeah, Tom had to drive halfway across America, and he survived. All right, man. Good times. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Andrew.
Kind of like Clark W. Griswold, driving halfway across America, but solo and in a rental car and not in a Winnebago.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.